This one's gonna be a long one, guys, so hope you're in for the long haul. Hey guys, it's V. As you can tell, I am channeling all the fall vibes right now because it's September and it's time to get cold, Texas. I don't know if you've heard, but it's gonna be fall soon, so it'd be great if like you weren't still 95 degrees outside. So today I'm going to do a video that I feel like would be really helpful to a lot of people. I thought that I would do an informative video about bleach because bleach is one of the things that I love to watch on YouTube, is watching people bleach their hair. And so I really wanted to do a sort of tips and like some mistakes that I've made in the past that hopefully can help you. And yeah, so I just wanted to do some tips and tricks on bleaching your hair at home. With that said, I want to go over a couple of things before I get started here, and that is, I just want to say that in general, I will always recommend going to a professional to get your hair bleached. I don't think that bleaching your hair at home is bad if you follow the right precautions, but the reason that I say to visit a professional is because they've taken classes and they've had experience, and even if they're a new stylist, they've gone to cosmetology school and they've learned the basics of bleaching and, you know, sort of the do's and not do's, and if anything, they can give you advice. And that is my number one thing, is they can give you advice on whether or not your hair is in the condition to be bleached, because that can be a really big factor whether or not you follow any of the things that I'm about to tell you. If your hair is not in the right condition, it's not going to turn out how you want it to, and it most likely will make you cry. So the second thing I wanted to say is that these tips and tricks are things that I've learned through my experience of using bleach through cosmetology school, through personal use. Before I went to cosmetology school, I did my hair myself. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. From me being in, I wanna say 8th grade up until my junior year of high school, I did my hair myself, no professional. So these are just things that I've learned through my personal experience, and I'm not saying if you do any of these things that you're gonna come up with the perfect result or, you know, exactly what you wanted, because there's no way for me to predict that, because everyone has a different hair story, everyone has a different hair history and different hair types. So there's no way for me to predict what's going to happen with your hair, unfortunately, unless I were to have you sitting in front of me. So your hair story and your hair history have a huge effect on how bleach will affect your hair. Thirdly, this video is meant to be informative and hopefully helpful to you guys. I'm in no way trying to say that anyone is stupid for doing any of the things that I don't suggest. And like, I'm not gonna say you're stupid for experimenting with your hair, because experimentation is what's so great about being a cosmetologist, in that, you know, experimentation is how we came up to have anything. I mean, who would have known that ombre would be the thing, or that balayage would even be a thing, if no one experimented? So I will never say that anyone is dumb for experimenting with their hair. I'm just trying to help keep your hair as healthy and beautiful and long, because bleach can shorten it a little bit sometimes, as possible. So that's all I'm trying to do here, is help out with some things that maybe you've had questions about bleaching your hair at home. So with that said, my first tip to you guys is to at least have a consultation with a professional about your hair goals, about what you want to achieve. And the reason that I say that is because I want to say most hairstylists will offer a free consultation, so it's not going to cost you anything. Of course, make sure of that before you go and have a consultation, but most cosmetologists will, or most hairstylists will do a free consultation. And if you say, you know, I have dark brown hair and I want to be Elsa blonde, then they can tell you whether or not that's going to be achievable for your hair. And they can also tell you what kind of condition your hair is in. And make sure you know your hair history. Make sure you know what you've put on your hair. If you have virgin hair, that's wonderful, because that's not very common these days. But if you don't have virgin hair, which virgin hair, if you don't know what that means you've never put anything on your hair other than, you know, heat styling or anything like that. So you've never put any kind of color, and henna included. Henna is very important to let your stylist know if you have put that on your hair. But in general, know your hair history when you go into your consultation, and make sure that you're truthful with the stylist, because sometimes people will come in and they're like, oh, I've never put anything, and then you put bleach on it and it does not react how virgin hair would react to bleach. So make sure that you go in for a consultation, and say you go into someone and they're like, you know what, that's just not gonna work for you. It's not gonna be achievable. If you want it to be done, you're gonna fry your hair off. If they tell you that and you are resistant to believe them, because you know, all hairstylists have had different experiences. So if you're hesitant to believe the first stylist, go and get multiple opinions. I mean, if they all kind of tell you the same thing, then I would err on the side of let's not bleach our hair at home. But if they're all telling you sort of the same thing, then chances are they know what they're talking about. So definitely go in for a free consultation with one. Bless you. Definitely go in with multiple stylists if you like, to see if what you want is actually even achievable. Or the second mistake that a lot of people make is not getting professional bleach, as in getting a box dye from, let's say, Walmart or Target or anything like that. The problem with those dyes is that they have a certain volume of developer in them, and regardless of what color hair you have, what your hair history is, they're gonna have that same volume. And when you go to a professional stylist, they choose a volume based on what they want to do with your hair. So usually there's 4 volumes of developer. There's 10, 20, 30, and 40. So usually a box dye is probably going to have either 20, maybe even 30 volume for bleach. I'm not quite sure on that, but all of them are going to have the same thing. So, well, all of that brand are going to have the same thing. So if you buy a box dye and you look at the, you know, side of the box and you're like, oh, well, my hair color is this, and they say you can achieve this, I wouldn't necessarily believe what they say on the boxes, only because if your hair history is anything different from that model that they did that session of bleaching on, it's not going to turn out like that. And that's another kind of thing to be wary of, or a mistake that people make, is believing what's on the box. Like, oh, my hair is totally like a light blonde. I could totally get it to white blonde. Getting a box highlighting kit to bleach your hair is not the safest route to go for your hair. I've personally never used Sally's bleach on my hair, so I can't say whether or not it's professional or not. But at least at Sally's, you can choose the bleach that you use, you can choose the developer that you need, and you can even ask the sales associates for help in determining which volume you might need for your hair. And that goes on to my second thing, which is getting too high of a volume for your hair. A lot of the bleaching videos that I watch on YouTube, people get 40, 30 volume developer, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so intense. And a lot of times you don't need that. You really don't need a 30 or 40 volume developer. Those are really not very commonly used as far as I'm concerned. We rarely use 30 to 40 volume developer unless something called for it. And usually it doesn't. Usually 20 volume does the trick. It just, you know, the difference in volumes determines the strength of the bleach. So 10 volume is going to be the lowest strength, 40 volume is going to be the highest strength. So 40 volume can really fry your hair super quick if you're not careful with it. Make sure you're researching what type of volume of developer you really need, because you usually don't need 30 or 40 volume. The next common thing that I see on YouTube videos is putting bleach from root to tip, as in going from your roots all the way to your ends initially, just right at one certain point. The problem with doing this is that usually when you're bleaching your hair on the roots, you have new growth, like how I have my natural hair growing out here. And if I were to put bleach straight from root to tip on my hair, I'm gonna have platinum roots, some orange madness, and then probably platinum ends as well. So if that's the kind of look you're going for, then absolutely. But usually you want to keep bleach off of the roots of your hair if you're lightening your entire hair. first, because the heat from your scalp is going to make that color react faster, number one, and number two, that hair hasn't been colored before. So that hair is virgin hair, and so it's going to lighten a lot faster than everything else in general, just because everything else has color on it. The next sort of thing that a lot of people go into bleaching their hair with is having really, really high expectations and then not getting the results that they want. All I can say for this is definitely in the consultation with a hairstylist, they're going to let you know what's most likely going to happen if you bleach your hair yourself. So if you go to them, then that prevents having too high of expectations for your hair, because I'm not going to go into bleaching my hair this dark part right now and expect it to get platinum blonde like some of these end pieces, because it's been colored numerous times over and over. So I know that the first time I bleach it, I'm not going to get it to a white platinum blonde or anything like that. So just don't have too high of expectations the first time that you bleach, because bleaching is almost always a process. And with that being said, most of the time you are going to have to bleach your hair more than once in order to get the result that you want. And so another mistake that I often see on YouTube is bleaching your hair more than once in a day. And there are some products that help with this in terms of damage, and like Olaplex and things like that, but unfortunately those are only for cosmetologists to purchase. So rule of thumb is probably don't want to bleach your hair more than once in a day. If it's just so orange and so bad and like you really need to fix it, I would wait at least a week. But I mean, honestly, like I would wait, because your hair, when you bleach it, you're taking out all the moisture in that hair and all of the conditioning properties. Bleach just strips all of that away from your hair. So if you're doing it in the same day, you're just constantly stripping and stripping and stripping, and your hair is eventually gonna just give up. And can you blame it? Because you're really putting it through a lot. Another thing that a lot of people think is that color will lift color. So let's say you have my color up here, hair all over, and you want to go blonde. So you go and you buy a blonde color. The difference between a blonde color and a blonde bleach, or like a highlighting kit, is that a blonde color is to lighten virgin hair, because you can't lighten color with color. That's as basic as it gets. You can't lighten color with color. Once you've colored this dark, if you put a color on it, it's really not going to affect it too much. But if you put bleach on it, it's going to lighten it, because that's what bleach does. But color doesn't lift color. So that's another important tip to know. So if you're going to try lightening your hair, make sure you're getting a bleach and not a color. And you will know if you have bleach on your hair. You can kind of tell when it's starting to get damaged. And so if you're getting to a point where you've had it on for a while and you're worried, then just rinse it out. When in doubt, rinse it out, because you don't want to damage the integrity of your hair, because once it's damaged, it's really, really hard to repair. Another thing is using either way too much product or just not enough product. Commonly this happens when you're doing it at home, because you know, you're just kind of slapping it on there. You're like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna bleach my hair real quick. And the problem with using too little product is that you will get a spotty application, which I'm sure a lot of you have had happen to you. It's happened to me in the past. You won't get the full color that you're looking for. You're gonna have splotchiness, you're gonna have bad penetration. You're gonna have some bad penetration of your hair shaft, which is wonderful cosmetology terms. And then using way too much product, you could potentially overload your hair with just too much product, and then it's really hard to tell what's happening with it. If you just have it covered in white bleach, you may think that it's light enough, but then when you wash it out, you realize that it's really super yellow still, and you could have left it on a lot longer. So getting the perfect medium of product is really important when bleaching, and also when mixing. You always want to measure your mixing, especially when using bleach, because if you don't use enough developer or you use too much developer, that can really alter the texture of the bleach, and so that can alter the way that it works, as in the terms of lift. So say you do half your head and then you go to mix a new batch, but you didn't measure the first batch, you could mix way more developer on this one than this one, and then this side isn't going to lift as much as this side, so you could end up with problems. So always make sure you're measuring if you're using developer with your bleach. bleach. Another thing is not wearing gloves. It's really, really important when using bleach to wear gloves, depending on the situation. If you're bleaching your whole head and you're constantly touching bleach, then I would definitely recommend gloves, because if you let bleach sit on your fingers for too long of a time, it can actually really damage your fingertips and the skin on your fingers. I've been burned by bleach multiple times. It can really cause an intense burn. So always try to wear gloves if you can. If you're just doing like a quick like balayage highlight type thing and you're not really touching any bleach, then it's okay. But if you're going to be touching bleach and like, you know, scrubbing it into your ends, which I don't know if I'd really recommend, but if you're going to be touching it a lot, then definitely make sure you're wearing gloves. Another thing is to try and use a brush if you can. Using your hands is great and all, but it can cause a lot of spottiness. It's just a lot more uniform to use a brush. You're gonna get a lot better of a result using a brush. It's gonna penetrate the hair a little bit easier, and so using a brush rather than your hands is gonna make it a little bit better for you. Letting your bleach dry out is another thing that I see happen a lot. When bleach dries out, it can stop working. And so if you don't cover it with something like foil, saran wrap, things like that, if you don't cover it, then that can cause dry out and that can cause the product to stop working. And so you're like, well, I've had this on forever, but it's not lightening my hair. Trying to bleach hair that's been freshly colored. I don't recommend this at all. Let's just say that. Once you've put a fresh permanent dye on your hair, it's really penetrated into the shaft of your hair. So trying to then bleach that out quickly is gonna be a lot harder for you. If you dyed your hair dark and you immediately regret it, in that case, I recommend going to a professional, because they're gonna be able to get that color out a lot easier than you will by yourself. And they'll be able to keep the integrity of your hair a little bit better than, say, if you just tried to bleach your whole head after freshly coloring it, especially with at-home box dye, because that is the hardest hair dye to get out of hair. Another thing is overlapping hair that's already been previously bleached. I know when a lot of people do at-home hair color, like say they're just doing the roots of their hair, they'll just put it on the roots and then put it all over the rest of their head. And you know, that works for a lot of people, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but with bleach, it's not necessarily the best idea. If you're platinum blonde and you just want to do your roots, you just do your blonde roots, you do your roots all over your head, you don't want to drag bleach over the parts that are already light, if you know what I'm saying, because then you're just re-damaging and adding more damage to your hair and sucking out all that moisture and all that stuff that's not necessary. So if you've already got some parts of your hair that are at the desired level, then don't re-bleach those if you don't have to. And the last tip that I have for you guys is sometimes you don't need to do straight bleach on your hair. They may only need a bleach wash or a color remover or something that's a lot less damaging than just putting straight bleach on your hair. So that's again when a consultation is really, really important with a hairstylist, because they'll be able to tell you whether or not you even need to bleach your hair, because sometimes it's really not even necessary. So yeah, I hope that this was really helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below for me in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best I can. Keep in mind that I don't know what your hair type is. I don't know your hair history, so I can only help so much, but I will try to help as much as I can. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to show some love to that like button down there. And if you subscribe, then you can be one of my gypsies, and every single one of you guys count. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye!